There it is.
And we are recording. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
Hello.
wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this week's episode of Sexually Speaking with myself, Keisha Clark, and the amazing and incredible, deliciously delightful Rhonda Burns. Say hello, Miss
Hello,
Rhonda.
good morning, good afternoon. Hello, welcome. So nice to have you here. So nice to see you, Keisha. We're both in blue today. I don't wear blue a lot, but I'm wearing it more and more. So
I'm liking the blues, the greens,
I know, me
fun kind of colors.
too.
So if it is your first time joining us, thank you. And again, welcome. And if you roll your cursor, if you're joining us live over the screen, along the bottom of the screen, you will see a list of options come up, or on a bar rather, and you can actually click on the chat or the Q&A. You can send us a question that way, and you will be able to send a question privately to myself and Rhonda, or either one of us, or you can just post your question for everyone to see if you want to share it with the group. We love your participation. We love your feedback. We love hearing what's going on for you, whether that's during the show or after the show. So if you're seeing this as a replay and something comes up for you, or you have an awareness, or you just something you want to share, or a question you want to ask, look in the text below this video and you will find the email and also the way to get on the guest list to join us live each week. Have I missed anything, Rhonda?
Nope, you got it.
Awesome. Well, you have landed on Sexually Speaking, and it is a show with myself and Rhonda Burns. We are all kinds of awesomeness, and we won't take a whole lot of time talking about that. You can also play with us on our radio shows, which air on Wednesdays for Rhonda at 10 a.m. Eastern, and Fridays for myself at 11 a.m. Eastern. Potency is my game. It's Miss Rhonda's show, and girl, it ain't no lie, as I like to say.
Hashtag no joke.
No joke. And my show is Living Well, which airs again at 11 a.m. on Fridays Eastern time. And we love to play with the magic of bodies, with energy, with creation, and we also love to bust the lies out of existence. So that's part of what brought us together for this venture. And we ask you to sign up to be on the guest list just as an indication to us that you really want to play. And also we do talk about adult conversation here, if relatively speaking.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Definitely, relatively speaking. So yes, there is a bit of content that might not be appropriate for young ones. So if you have young ones in the room while you're watching this or as you're getting to watch this, just consider that. And you might also hear a swear word or two or five every so often. There is no filters. There are no limits. There's no conditional conversation here. We actually call this unconventional conversations to unfuck your life. So if that gives you any indication, this is kind of how we roll. So Rhonda, anything you want to say before we get kicked off here?
No, I'm just grateful to be here. I'm just kind of in this space of just gratitude and appreciation. It's really interesting, this space that I've been in the last few days. And I was in the shower and I cried, just bawled. It's been an interesting morning, struggle with technology. And I'm like, oh, here we are. We get to play with our peeps today. Cool. What do we want to play with?
Funny you should ask. What's on the docket today is sex on the brain. And I'm just going to I want to read, not kind of read, I am going to read what came up as we were playing with the energy of this topic. So this week we explore what our brains have to do with sex. Is there such a thing as hardwiring when it comes to our choices, thoughts, and behaviors around sex? Or does it have to do with more than our brains? And what happens to or with our brain when we are getting amorous? Do you get stuck in your brain during those times, or when it's starting to get a little heated? Do you lose use of your brain in those moments, or in any other moments really? And are you someone who is always thinking about sex, or have you already forgotten what sex is? So in either case, or anything in between, we're going to have a conversation about awareness around the perspectives on this topic, and what is it that really lands for you, and what do you know when it comes to your brain and sex? Does your brain get in the way, or is your brain actually a helper? And I wonder if our brains are actually really one of our greatest pleasure centers. So what comes up for you with all those questions, Rhonda?
I just keep hearing head tripper of magnitude. I am recovering and in the process of recovering head tripper of magnitude. And it's amazing to me as I look back over the course of, sex in my reality, what it had been prior to, knowing what I know now. I get in trouble when I get in my head. I really do.
Mhm.
When I have the most fun, when I have the most ease, when I have the most pleasure and enjoyment is when I'm actually out of my brain.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times my brain is, of course, required to start the process. And yet the body knows. Like the body, if we allow the body to take over and to really give the body the reins of show me, it's a very different experience. So this is still one, and again, not really. Okay, that's for another topic. So beep, beep, back that up. That's all I have to say in that moment. In this moment, it's gonna be one of those days.
That's
I'm
awesome.
sorry. Like, there's no telling what's gonna come out of my mouth.
Well, and isn't that funny? Because that is part of what goes on when we get our brain involved. And so, disclaimer: this episode is not about making our brains wrong or
Not
making you
ever.
wrong if you use your brain. Actually, I rather appreciate folks who have a degree of capacity with that, to make things interesting, to actually create more and generate fun. Especially when it comes to sex, whether we're talking about the type of behavior or choosing copulation or all of those other beautiful, juicy energies that we get to play with, not necessarily in the form of taking our clothes off with someone else or just for ourselves. So it's funny. I'm going to tell on myself now. I was telling Rhonda before the show started that I was desiring to look up some information, because I like to do research, and none of that happened really. I mean, I got to peruse a couple of things. I did a couple of Google searches, and I kind of got that anybody can do those Google searches. So if you want to see a lot of information that is actually pretty cool and fascinating and nice to know and could maybe give you some more awareness, Google sex on the brain or sex and your brain and see what comes up. And you'll find some fascinating articles, books, journals, studies, all kinds of neat stuff. And then, of course, throughout the week, once this topic showed itself to be put on the docket, I kept hearing, this is your brain on sex.
How you like me now?
And it would just make me laugh. Yeah.
How you like me? That's all I hear. It's going to be a song day. Oh my
right? So what do we actually know about what capacities we have and what capabilities we have that maybe it could allow our brain to actually work for us when it comes to sex?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Right? My body just went, yeah.
There's quite a bit of charge around that. Wow. So how many of us have tried to intellectualize sex? Okay.
Like, what? I heard you, but I didn't hear you. Heard you, but I didn't hear you.
Yeah, okay, raise your hand in your own room, in the privacy of your own room, because we can't see you. Raise your hand if you've ever, when you've planned a date, you've actually gotten into the planning of the date and you've planned how you're going to have the sex, right?
Yeah.
Anybody ever done that?
Where's the spontaneity and fun in that?
Right? And I wonder how many conclusions we might have, maybe nobody but me, I could be the only one, about if I do this for this event, then it'll earn me brownie points or bonus points toward having this later, which this other later could be sex, it could be something else. It might be earrings, it might be you pay for the meal, it might be something else, golly.
I'm like, whew, that was a big old wave. And all I'm hearing underneath all this is getting it right. That's that I got to get it right or do it well. No, you don't.
What if you don't?
What if that's a limitation?
Yeah.
Yeah, you asked that, how much have you intellectualized sex? I'm like, that's a lot. It's a lot. It's a really big, so everything that is in all of the lifetimes where we've intellectualized sex and everything that means, and let's just gather it all up. Let's just take a deep breath in and just blow it out and let it go. What else is available beyond intellectualizing sex?
Excellent question. Wow.
Whew.
So everywhere you've involved your brain in sex as a requirement, both we're talking about copulation and the having sex with the universe as well. And we can take that in baby steps if anybody needs to do that, because I know that's kind of a for a lot of people. So with copulation, okay, so let's say this is particularly pertaining to you are making a date, or you've made a date, so you're going to be going on a date, and so there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be sleeping together, fornicating, having intercourse,
getting it on,
getting down. What is it called? The horizontal mambo.
Horizontal mambo. I mean, we get.
It makes me laugh. So let's say that's on the menu, right? And so everywhere now, the question has changed. That's too funny. So you guys are shifting and changing. That's awesome. Maybe we're doing
more fun. It changes faster.
I love it.
Novel concept. Oh, laugh more. Changes faster. Oh.
What the heck you say? Oh my goodness. So yeah. Okay. So then, what about with the sex of everything else? With the sex of everything and every molecule of the universe? Where have you possibly made something that has to be figured out before you can have that? Like, that there's a right way to do that. You know, like you wake up and you say the right words and the universe puts favor upon you, you know, that you step outside and you actually have to sing something in the right key before you can then have a miracle happen for you. You know, it's, what if the having sex what if you could allow your brain to be a contribution to your sex, to your sexual experiences and your willingness to receive? And what if the contribution didn't have to be in the form of figuring it out?
Absolutely. Yeah. As you were talking, I heard planning and execution, and I'm like, there's, you know, it's nice when people do plan nice outings and, you know, nice dates. And that there's a level of detail that I appreciate. And then like the execution of that, and then that only goes so far. And then the rest for me, I desire and enjoy when it is more spontaneous, when it is more in the moment, when it is less about the form and the structure and the cross the finish line and the dot the T's. It's like literally throwing caution to the wind. But it was funny that I heard planning and execution, and I was like, ooh, yeah, like whatever that is. So send it on away. No.
You're not going to a board meeting.
No.
Or a shareholders meeting.
Let me straighten my tie. No.
Unless you're doing something really interesting at those meetings. So, hey, and if that's your thing, honey, go.
Yeah.
So something just popped up too. In some of the stuff that I did get to peruse, there's a bit about, you know, how men and women are wired differently with regard to sex. And there is a lot of conversation about the hardwiring for certain behaviors, certain predispositions or predilections. And I wonder how much of that actually applies to us. Like, is it hardwiring simply because it's a choice that's been made for thousands and thousands of years, and it's what's been taught, you know? So it's like become a part of the energetic makeup that is the template for the physiological creation.
Ooh,
or is something else possible?
Well, yes and yes. Like I get like, yes, it has been hardwired that way. And I also know that if somebody chooses to explore beyond what is, then it can be modified, changed, expanded, whatever. Like it can be modified. But my knowing is that most people are comfortable with the status quo, that, oh, well, this is the way we are. This is the way it is. It's the way it's always been. And that's the way it's always going to be. And for those people, good on you. Like, okay, cool. But for somebody like you and me, we're always like, well, what else can I play with? What else can I change? What else can I, like, oh, what's in there? You know, like
hardwiring doesn't really apply.
Hardwiring doesn't relate. I'll show you hardwiring.
I got your hardwiring on it.
So yes and yes. I mean, cool. And again, like how much we talked about this when we got together Sunday about, you know, the live separation, and that how much that you just spoke of continues to perpetrate that live separate, that men are hardwired this way and women are wired this way, and men are, you know, and I get it, and I'm not debunking it, I'm not like denying it, and I'm always like, okay, is there something beyond that? Is there something greater than that? Because in essence, that's a limitation in my book.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I don't desire to be limited in any way. I just desire to have total choice and freedom of choice in whatever moment. That's a whole lot more fun to me than continuing to buy the continued mantra of, you know, men or whatever, you know, all that. So
what if hardwiring is just something that is one possibility?
Yeah.
For a lot of people, for those for whom it is real, what if that just kind of goes along with that whole law of attraction type thing? The energy follows your choice. The energy creates what you ask it to. So if you are adopting and adapting those points of view, have the hardwiring. And what if there's something else possible beyond the hardwiring? And apparently Lily knows something about this.
Lily, what do you know? Yeah, I'll receive the energy that she's moving. She knows a little something about some hardwiring, right?
Yeah. Like, so everywhere we're approaching the topic of sex, the idea of sex, the possibilities of sex, from the supposed hardwiring that really takes our choice away. Because the thing that I notice about when people talk about hardwiring is that immediately there's this resignation of your choice. Like, oh, it's hardwired, therefore it has to happen that way. What if it doesn't? Especially with sex. What if it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
What do we know? What do you know? All of y'all.
Like, that's a really big energy.
Y'all are some freaking geniuses out there. So maybe you start claiming that. Mm-hmm.
And my phone is blowing up here. I'm sorry. Somebody
No worries.
I have it muted, but let me just make sure that, you know, the house ain't falling down around me here, because that would be ugly. Oh my God! And Megan's. It's been one of those days, people. How does it get any better?
Woo-hoo.
Lordy mercy. Okay.
Yeah.
Come on back.
Now, I kind of actually love this. Well, there's no kind of to it. It's like, I think it's really cool how this is showing up. And for each of us, our day is showing up relatively, you know, to the way it's going for us. And with some of what you're experiencing, how often does that occur when we try to plan, you know, when we try to really intellectualize the process? And then how much more likely are we to be really irritated when those things show up as the surprises, which, you know, when it comes to sex, we can get pretty invested when it comes to the physical sex, as well as just the enjoyment of someone's company or the creation of a really awesome experience with someone, whether that involves copulation or not. And again, if it's one of your first times hearing us have these conversations, really we work from the premise that sex is a whole lot more than what it has been taught as being so far on this planet. And when we're talking about the energies of sex, we actually are including the physical behavior and the copulatory related things. And we're also including all of those energies in and around and beyond that, because that's really part of where we want to explore. So just in case you were maybe having some tilty puppy dog head going on.
Yeah, wow, there's so much more downloads. So thank you for that, because yes, like for those people who play with and in the body of work of access consciousness, for those of you who haven't heard it, you can look it up. Keisha and I work with a great number of the tools, and we embody a lot of the tools because they're very pragmatic, they're very fast, they're very effective, and we do a lot of work. But what the play is right now is around chaos. And so again, like you set things up. Let's say you set things up and there's some form and structure in it. And then when things start to go chaotic, they start to go sideways and things get introduced that weren't in the plan. Most of us contract. Most of us shut down. We get frustrated. We get upset. We get embarrassed. We withdraw. What if, like, and that's why I appreciate the conversations that are being had around chaos, is because chaos is creative and it is really expansive, and it's really annoying at times when we're so conditioned and entrained to structure and order and a little bit of chaos on the side. But when you bring the chaos into everything, and I love what Eleanor wrote in the chat room, this is why this reality sex does not interest me. And so
Mhm.
so if you could just verify, Eleanor, that it's because of the structure and the intellectualization and the planning and is that what you're, let us know, because I'd like to play with that because that's really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, like how much of since today's topic is sex on the brain, like how much of, yes, and the rules. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Like how much of what you've done or been doing doesn't actually work for you? Well, I'm here to remind you there's something else available, and that's why we're having these conversations, is to start to poke the bears and crack open the spaces and just to give it room so that other possibilities can start to seep in. But you have to be the one to recognize, does that work for me? Does this work for me?
Yeah.
And just keep asking, keep choosing, keep playing, keep exploring. Yeah. Did that make any sense?
That was awesome. And it's inspiring me to bring in another piece of information that I am aware of. A while back, it's probably been over a year ago now, I actually was watching a lovely series with Lisa Garr, who does the awareness show.
Right.
And she had Mark Waldman on. Now, he's been on a number of times, but this particular conversation they were having really was about the brain and things that they had recently been finding out at that point about the way that the brain behaved. And actually what he was talking about was the nature of the brain is actually chaotic. It's not linear. And the moment I heard him say that, it cracked open so much, like massive download. Because again, for me, whenever I heard people say hardwired and it absolutely has to be this way because it's in your genetics or it's in the blah, blah, there was something that always wiggled for me. And it was like this little, I just, I wasn't buying it. Now, I totally got how we could create it that way. And for me, there was always this little something. So when I heard him say that, it was like so many thousands of tumblers fell into place for me. Because the way that I organically work in my life and living, my whole existence, has totally been chaotic.
Yep.
And that's not, I'm not making a case that we should live unorganized and totally crazy and, not be responsible. That for me is not the chaos that we're speaking of. That is the chaos we can create,
Right.
which is very different than creating from chaos. So that organic nature is what I'd like to kind of play with. And if you haven't heard this, look up Mark Waldman. It's Waldman. He's done a lot of work. He's a neuroscientist, so he's done a lot of work with functions of the brain, with different behaviors, with meditation and the effects of different things on the brain, different types of meditations and exercises and stuff to impact and affect the brain waves. Really kind of neat guy. And that particular conversation changed everything for me. Once and it was something that, like, it's one of those things that it, but you're just kind of waiting, even though you're not really conscious that you're waiting for somebody to say it so it's validated, But the moment that information it came out of his mouth, I was like, that's it. That's totally it. And so everywhere we're trying to make the process of creating a date, an experience with someone, or having sex with someone, something we think should be a linear function and should progress from A to B to C to D, just like it does in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
What if you could be willing to let go of that expectation?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah. Little nose itch there. Woo.
And everything that you think is standing in your way of letting go of that and choosing something different, if you like, how about you just take a deep breath in, blow that out, let it go, because that's a lie too. It is all just choice.
Oh, that's juicy, Miss Rhonda.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, all right, there's all kinds of stuff like flashing. I'm trying to give me something I can talk to. It's all just really interesting energies around this.
And I love that, like how much of this is exactly what we've been introducing with how much of sex is not something that is even put into language yet. I made a reference last week in our conversation to your energetic vocabulary. Mm-hmm. And really part of what that requires is a willingness to let go of your need to speak something or to control something. That energetic vocabulary is more of your willingness to just play with what shows up. And so for some of you who may not have seen very many of our, or been in on very many of our conversations, this kind of like, wow, kind of moments, we're like letting our energy open up even more. And for me, this is part of what I describe as having sex with the universe, receiving the information and allowing it to bring you different awareness and different sensation.
Yeah, and this ties in beautifully. Thank you, because again, sex on the brain being the topic, and us always being in our head, because from the time that we're little, we are taught to, ask and answer, and in school we're taught to get the right answer, and we know all this, and so we spend the majority of our time up here, and most of us are so completely disconnected. And so when you do start to notice, ask for energies to be shown to you, and you start to notice them, usually there are no words. And again, if you become aware of them and you don't have to do anything with them, then you actually start to get out of your head. You get to be more in your body. You get to be more in connection, communion, and communication with all of the elements of the universe and with other beings. Like, I talk to people without saying a word, and they talk to me. So again, like, I know, Big Show, I was like, sorry, squirrel, somebody
multitasking.
Squirrel. Come back. Yeah, so again, if you desire to function with your brain as the greatest contribution to you and your body, start to play with energy. Like, really start to, and again, most people are like, I don't know about energy. I can't feel it. I can't perceive it. Bullshit. Okay. It's practice. And I'm telling you, you can walk in a room and know when somebody's mad, when somebody's like, I'm calling bullshit. Okay.
I hear the character from Gone with the Wind. I don't know nothing about birth and no energy.
Yeah. Bullshit. That's my Matthew. Bullshit. And that Matthew.
Get it together.
And again, I didn't know jack shit about it when I started, and here I am, and it's like my best friend, and I love it, and it keeps me out of my head, and it makes my life greater and easier, and sex more fun, and my body happier, and my playmates more juicy, like, and on and on and on. So just inviting you to, if you desire to have your brain work for you and with you, not against you, it's time to start to implement energy and energies and noticing and acknowledging them more. Yeah.
Yeah. What if we have some tools for that?
What?
We could share some. We got some tools.
Shut up.
Toys. Little toys you can be playing with.
Toys.
So we love to play with questions, right? In case you didn't know that. This is your first time playing with us. We love to play with questions. Now, one of our favorite questions, or some of our favorite questions, have this, we call them the show me questions. And so a very kind of simplistic approach to get started, in case you haven't really warmed up your question muscles yet, is universe, let's see, universe, show me the energy of allowing my brain to be a contribution and not a condition.
Ooh, universe, show me the energy of allowing my brain
to be a contribution.
To be a contribution.
And not a condition.
Beautiful.
Or rather than a condition.
Let's take it. Throw it out.
Yeah, it's
nice.
Are you willing to have that ease with sex? Are you willing to have an ease in your life? Because it is very different, and you have to let your brain shut the frick up. There are just those times where you might actually have to say to yourself, shut up. Just shut up. Okay, what else is possible here? Yeah. Now, you could go and ask your brain to solve pi, solve the equation of pi or whatever that is.
I thought chocolate pie.
Or make a pie. Yeah. That could keep your brain busy, while you go play. And what I'm aware of is that for a lot of people, it's a really foreign concept to like shut your brain off to have something, to create an experience. So there, again, there's no wrong way to do this, folks. So if you're like, what? I can't turn my brain off? What? Are you kidding me? It's really more about becoming present, your brain doesn't have to turn off. Okay.
Your brain actually never turns off.
Your brain actually doesn't, right?
That would be bad. That would be really bad. Like literally bad.
So, just mental images. Sorry, guys. So it's really about the process of becoming present. And there's also, I think there's actually some articles in different medical journals about your brain being a pleasure center. Yes, love. And so what could we, now that we've kind of we've reached the sort of the top of the hill, and now what are the ways that our brain could be contributing to our life and to our sex?
Absolutely.
Whether that's copulation or whether that's our having sex with the universe, however that shows up. When you go to work every day, what possibilities are there to play with for you to be receiving the joy of that adventure, of those experiences? When you have dinner with anyone, whether that's your family, someone you're interested in having as your family, or business partners, making a business deal, doing negotiations, what energy could you allow yourself to be in to be receiving the excitement and the joy and the contribution or the generativeness to your body, yes, love, of that experience, of that conversation, of that engagement? How present are we willing to be? One of the things Rhonda and I both find in the work that we do and in our own lives as we're processing we're working our own path, is that willingness to be present is enormous, and it changes everything. And I know there's a few people here with us who play with that as well, just because I get to talk to you guys. And so for the others of you, does anything come up for you into your awareness of where you have an ease with that? And that would be a place to begin to play more and ask for that energy to permeate into the other parts of your life. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are wizards. I love this, because the moment we start talking about it, they're so willing. I'm acknowledging you, how willing you are.
So in the chat room, somebody asked, explain please, after we did Universe, show me the energy of allowing my brain to be a contribution, not a condition. So I'm assuming it's the condition piece that hung you up, Sweet Pea. If you would answer that.
Cool.
Okay, cool. So everywhere you're cognitively trying to figure this out, everywhere you're trying to get it right, we're frying them like, boom! Yes, and it's Tuesday. Sorry. Not sorry. Yeah, so everywhere you guys are trying to use your cognitive thinking, logical brain to figure it out so that you can implement it and get it right, I'm going to ask you to just chunk it out the window, take a deep breath. Really what I want you to focus on is asking the universe to show you the energy of your brain being a contribution, okay? Yeah. Add the last piece, but you don't have to figure it out. This is where we stay in our brain. Okay. Go.
I think you might have missed in the beginning of this conversation, we actually were talking about, sorry, I have little hairs on my face. We were actually talking about how much we try to intellectualize everything, and especially when it comes to sex. Yes. Like we were giving the example of the hot date, so that in case that adds to the information.
Yeah,
as well.
Super. So again, what I loved is when I was reminded as I stepped in more and more and just dove headfirst into this. I'm like, this shit is fun. This stuff works. I'm having fun. It's expanding everything.
Amen.
I had Dr. Dane here. He asked me a question and I said, I can't see it, or I can't vocalize. I think I said, I don't have the words. He's like, you don't have to have the words. He said, are you willing to recognize that the energy is there and you have the ability to just acknowledge the energy is there and to change it, just choosing? And I said, yes, because again, I'm so tired of being on the hamster wheel of my brain trying to figure this shit out, when in my knowing somewhere, I know I don't have to have all the language. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to have the definitions. It's like, okay, we're going that way because that's the way we need to be going. And again, it comes down to trust. I've had to learn to trust myself. I've had to learn to trust that the universe has my back, and I trust the tools, and that when I use them, it all works out greater than I could imagine. So again, that goes back to the intellectualization. What would it be like if we did not have to intellectualize every single minuscule, every single item all the time? Okay, I'm not saying chunking out being intellectual, but it's like the over intellectualization of things is actually becoming a detriment, and that's where many of us are disconnected from our bodies. Yeah.
And another piece of this too is this part about when we are getting in the mood, when we are approaching the possibilities of playing with this other person with more than our clothes, taking our clothes off. How many of us go into our head? How many of us get really locked in our head because that chatter starts?
Is that just women, or is that men both?
I would reckon to say that it does happen for men too.
Does it?
I think there's a lot of bombardment that goes on for all of us.
Yeah.
It is about how to perform and how to do it right and how to make points and how to hit the right spot. And you know what? No two bodies are the same.
Correct.
That's what I know, like I know. And I also know that no two bodies receive information or process information the same.
Yeah.
So the way we actually do copulation, if we could get out of our head, our brain.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
You can get in your other head, boy.
If you could let go of your head, both of them, in male person's cases, you don't have to. What if you didn't have to have? What if there's no bar you had to reach? What if there's no perfection you had to attain? And what if letting go of the brain, letting go of what's going on in your brain during those moments would actually give you the space to be more present. And when I'm in this sense, when I'm talking about being present, I'm also talking about being present for you first and foremost.
Yeah.
If you don't have a sense of ease with being in that situation, it tends to compound whatever's going on for the other person. And then it just kind of spirals into directions we don't, oftentimes, that aren't fun for us.
Right.
And we're trying to create that experience in spite of ourselves rather than as ourselves, right? So I know for a lot of women, all of that mind chatter starts. Oh, they're looking at me at this angle. Oh, the light's on. Oh, the lamp is too bright or not bright enough. Or, oh, I can't see this. Or, oh, he's going to see that. Or, oh, she's going to notice my, it's, and if this has never happened to you, oh my God, please write a book.
Right? Like, yeah, I wouldn't take that more of that on the planet.
More about that, right? But yeah, so that's a part of that chatter. That's a part of, and it's in those moments, is your brain being a contribution? Or is that just those tripwires that get triggered that run those tapes that really don't allow us to have the joy of what we're creating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something to play with.
Yeah, and so again, because I'm all about the pragmatics and like, how do we change it, right? How do we get more of what we actually desire? And so what I always do, whether I'm going into conversation on Skype or Zoom or in the world or into a date or whatever, I always, always, always clear all the projections, expectations, conclusions and decisions on my part, on their part, and anybody else's parts, just because I throw in extra good measure. Yeah. I clear all that because I desire a really neutral space. And again, we're such psychic sponges that we're continuously picking up thoughts, feelings, and emotions from everybody else. And so whoever you're meeting is doing the same thing. So again, the more of that you can clear, the better. And then I create an energetic zone of space for myself, and I ask that I be the dominant vibration. And this is hang on, let me make sure this makes sense. I ask to be the dominant entity in that space, like that I bring this massive amount of space so that the person that's with me can actually let all that other stuff like kind of fade back. And I'm actually with the person. I'm with them. And I ask for the person to be with me, like right there with me. Are you with me? And just again, so that's on me. I'm willing to be that because as I've played with that, the people that show up and are with me and are willing to be there present, it's night and day. It's a really big difference rather than just
Totally.
they're in their head, I'm in my head. It's a lot more engaging. It's a lot more intimate. And there's a level of vulnerability that's required that a lot of people aren't willing to be, that I am, and as you are. It's a hell of a lot sexier, and it goes a lot deeper. And guess what? Here's a little secret. When you be that, people kind of fall in love with you. Shut up. They want more of you. What?
Exposing big stuff there, Rhonda.
Secret. Okay.
So for everybody who just like was like, I could never do that, I'm going to ask you to stop it. Interesting point of view that you might have that point of view, and a way that you can sort of a beginner tool to go into that and to go toward your version of what Rhonda was talking about for you is you can actually just ask a specific question. All the conclusions you have about sex, everywhere you're going into your head and being in your conclusions about sex,
Yep.
what it's supposed to be, what it's not supposed to be, what it can't be, what it has to be, what it could never be. That's where you can begin by choosing, okay, all the conclusions I have, the ones I'm aware of and the ones I'm not aware of, I'm going to choose beyond them right now.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath, blow it out, whatever works for you. However, you are able to let go of those conclusions and then see what goes on next. And if you bump into another wall, think it in your head again or say it out loud if you want to. You know, it is really fun to be with a partner who's willing to play with this with you in those moments of sex.
Yeah.
It really actually is. Because what can show up? OMG. Like, if you're willing to be having that conversation while you're playing with each other, holy moly.
Yeah.
And it's if you let go of the agenda, I think that's part of the huge brain trigger that goes on is like this right or wrong result. It's like this goal-oriented activity that we do for most of us, and that's what we learn, granted. And at some point, you get to learn or you get to be exposed to the possibility and the information that there is another way to do that. And it doesn't have to be goal-oriented. And it's not a means to an end. What if letting go of conclusions and the restrictions and all of the limitations and being willing to have the fun of that actually empowers you to create more in all of the other areas of your life?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Love that.
So again, some two pragmatic things I want to share with you guys, and this will be in the follow-up email, because again, as a head tripper of magnitude, I have worked diligently to learn to get out of this thing. That has served me very well, and I know there's greater available to me, and so I do desire greater. So one of the things I just ask is, in any given moment, so truth, am I actually in my head right now? And I get light or heavy, yes or no. And if I am, then I can ask a follow-up question. Okay, is that my greatest choice right now? Light or heavy, yes or no, right? And then I have a choice at that point. Okay, if it's not light and I'm in my head, okay, then I'm going to invite you guys to start playing with breath work. And this is one that it's so funny, right? We breathe in and out like we wouldn't be here if we weren't breathing. But intentional breathing, it actually, and you can look up all kinds of different breathing acts, but I like the ones that where you're in and out through your nose, because it actually does, it forces the body, it forces you in with your body. It engages with your body. Yeah. So it's literally like, or you can go out through your mouth. In and out through your nose it requires more presence for me, and I'm not going to do it right now, but so asking the questions, truth, am I in my head right now? Light or heavy, yes or no? Okay, truth, is that my greatest option or choice right now? Get what's light for you. And then if you want to add breathing. Now, most of us, if we're with somebody in that moment and we're asking that in our heads, we're not going to sit at a table going, right? So it could be as subtle as just, Just slow in and slow out. That's very subtle. I mean, yes, I'm breathing, but I'm just breathing more consciously, right? So again, those are some things to play with more pragmatically to start to get you out of your brain,
I love
and
that.
in with your body, and just to notice where you are, right? Most of us are just going along. We don't know where we are and what we're doing. We're just
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh my goodness. Now I did come across something that I thought was interesting. So I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
it's just sort of waving at me. Um, and again, for anybody who didn't hear this earlier, I would invite you to Google the either sex and your brain or sex on the brain. And there's all kinds of really cool stuff that comes up, and it makes, some of it makes for some really good read. And it might bring some more awareness for you, even if you just skim the article. Like,
Right.
I'm not someone who has to read every word of every article, because when I'm looking for things, I'm looking for different energies, and I'm asking what applies to my questions to pop for me. So it gives me a little more ease to just play with what I require for the questions I'm asking. So look those up. But then one of the things that I did notice that I thought was intriguing was a study that I didn't notice from where, but one of the things that it presented was that essentially what the receptors that are engaged in the brain during sex are create an effect as though you're in the same way that your brain and your body receives heroin. And I thought that that was very interesting. Now, it's likely that that was an article making a case about sexual addiction or the different predispositions to that, if that's something that you follow. For me, what it really brought up was before we had heroin, before we had these things that could fit our addictive things that we sometimes choose.
Right.
I looked at the potency of that. And so sex and our brain, sex to our bodies, for our bodies, and definitely I would imagine copulatory sex is going to be like the strongest charge for most of us, okay? But even sex, like when you're preparing a meal, like you're putting your joy and your awesomeness into that process, and you are infusing that food. And then when people eat that food, there is that, the receiving of you, as well as the nutrient of the food, the joy of the experience, whatever. So I look that those words popped for me as sort of a reminder that what can be created in the chemical aspect of our bodies when we engage in sex. Now, for me, my fine print is when we're willing to engage in that exchange, it has a potency to it. And I, for me personally, my awareness is that's no mistake. That's no just like happenstance of our design, right? Mm-hmm. So would you be willing to be playing with that? Be aware of that, have your awareness of that, and be aware of the, I don't want to say effects because that's a word that can be kind of tricky. The impact, I think, could be a word, that your choices with sex can create. There is a very potent chemical thing that can go on in your body that can actually be a gift to your body, can be what we call a contribution to your body.
Absolutely. I mean, yes. And here's the thing, like, sex as we know it, for the most part, for most of us, we don't do it well. We haven't been taught. We haven't been educated. We haven't been shown. We haven't been modeled. So we got no fucking clue, excuse me, of how to do it well and naturally and orgasmically and cosmically, if you will, right? So the versions that we've done here, for the most part, sucked, right? Sometimes it's hit or miss, but in the way that it is naturally intended and what our divine, God-given, universally created possibilities are, yes, like potent, and like sex has been around always. There's a reason for it. right? But it's been bastardized and it's been manipulated and it's been dominated and it's been all these things. It's like, my desire is to get to the origins of the energies and the origins of the possibilities and the magic and the chemical reconstruction and the chaotic and all of that. Like, that's the sex I desire to be having and playing with and teaching and showing and modeling and yes, because that's the potency that each and every one of us is.
Absolutely.
And I know this in every fiber of my being.
Yes.
Can you get some of that? Can you get some of that? Can you get you some? Can you get you some? Amen.
Where's my fan? Oh my goodness. So what does this have to do with sex on the brain? Okay, so for this week, because again, when we have these conversations, we're very well aware that we are only skimming the surface of what is possible with these conversations. And our desire is that it inspires something for you relative to your life and living and your body and your businesses and your bank accounts, your reality, however you want it, whatever you're desiring. Our hope is that it inspires something to shift for you to be having more of what you desire.
Yeah.
And we wish for you lots of great sex, both copulatory kind and the non-necessarily copulatory, energetically copulatory kind. So when you are choosing, when you are desiring to create, in the most linear terms, a date, an experience with another person, would you be willing to play with coming out of conclusion? Would you be willing to play with what are the energies that can be ignited here? What can be activated? What can be created in a way that is fun and exciting and enjoyable for you? That is part of what Rhonda and I know and are so excited about, is the generativeness of that. When we're willing to receive it, what that can create in our life, not just in the bedroom, but everywhere in our life, is so much more and so much farther beyond what is generally talked about and done here. And does that mean you have to be an alien? No, it just means you have to be willing to choose something different than what the majority of people might be willing to choose right now.
Yeah.
And what invitation could you be if you were willing to choose that?
Yeah.
And that permeate out into your world and the people who know you and the people who are desiring to play with you.
Yeah. And playing with the I wonder questions, before your experience or your interactions, hey, I wonder, what could show up that's greater than anything I could even formulate or imagine. Like, universe, just let it be. Like, show me tonight, and then just give it up, right? And every time you find yourself starting to, go into that hypnotic mind trip, just say, okay, cool, stop. Universe has got this. And again, if you're willing to let the universe lead, the universe is lining it up. Like, I've used that more time. Hey, universe, how can this night or this experience or this date, show up greater than anything I could ever imagine? Now, the interesting thing is a lot of times those dates don't really, they're okay. But what I gain from it, what I can glean from it of myself and energies and interacting with other people, like, it does expand. It's always a contribution, right? So if I'm out of conclusion that this date has to go well and that it has to lead to, sex in the bedroom after that, right? Like, that's conclusion. So if I choose something, yes, I'm going to go, okay, universe, show me how, I wonder how this could be greater than anything I could even, formulate, and then just watch what unfolds. Man, it's amazing. And it's always expanding. You are always expanding. Yeah. And
so
go ahead.
No, keep going, because I've got a wedgie.
One quick thing. Okay, cool. If you guys are on Facebook and we're friends, awesome. I posted it this morning. This dude was making a chicken in his kitchen. He was dancing. It was a Hispanic post, and he's rocking this chicken and he's dancing. He was making love to the chicken, and that's the energy that I'm talking about. Like, and you're talking about, like, oh my, I want to eat his chicken. I want to sit at his table. I wonder if he got some after that meal. Like, that's the enthusiastic energy of, like, what we're talking about. Okay, so
wow. I love it. So now this is another, we may we may create a continuing conversation here. What I'm about to talk about is most of the way sex is done currently, as we know it in the conventional reality, is as judgment.
Yeah.
And this is something that is going to require more than the few minutes we have. And I get that. And I just want to throw this little thing into the salad for this week, so to speak. I know we have all these food
Food
references. I love it. So whenever you are finding yourself, when you catch yourself or notice yourself in your brain, in your head about sex, about anything to do with sex, about any kind of fixation, would you be willing to notice it, acknowledge it, and what is the question? Everywhere I'm creating sex as judgment in this moment, you could do show me. Let's do a universe show me. Universe, show me where I'm creating sex from judgment.
Okay, nice.
There it is. Universe, show me where I'm creating sex from judgment. Now, be prepared. If you're going to play with this question, this might rock your world just a little, or maybe a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
And part of what this might show up as is, oh, I could never go to bed with that person because, oh, I couldn't like this person because, oh, I could not eat at their house because, oh, I couldn't receive this from them because. Not all cases are you talking about copulation necessarily. And there is that energy of, are you willing to receive? Are you willing to receive what that person desires to offer you or is capable of offering you?
Right.
In bed or not in bed. Okay. We like to play with the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
So sex as judgment runs rampant on this planet. It is the primary way that sex
mainstay.
Is. Yeah. And it sells a lot of things. It makes a lot of movies. It creates a lot of #1 songs. And so cool. Now that you have that awareness, are you willing to have that awareness? And are you willing to know where you might be unconsciously doing that if you are now willing to change that or begin to change that, could allow you that freedom with sex for you, could allow you to get out of your head, get out of your brain, and allow sex to be a contribution to your brain and not let your brain get in the way of what sex could be for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Beautiful.
Ooh, you guys are amazing.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so grateful. How did we get so freaking lucky
I know.
to get to be having sex with you guys every week, right?
I'm like, it's so fun. And like, this is the beauty of it. We're just talking. We're just hanging out. We're just talking to energies and doing stuff. And it's fun. And that's sexy. And it's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful. And it's like friends, how much more fun would your life, living your body, your reality be if you used your sex and your brain to your greatest advantage, not your disadvantage? You know, it's like, I'm all about the fun factor. And my brain all the time sucks. It's not fun. And the more I stay out of my brain and just allow my brain to contribute enjoyably to me, then everything's like, it starts to pop. So I'm just, what would it take for you to play with this? It's a really big topic. It's a lot of information. We went a lot of places in 58 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's just one step at a time, one choice at a time, one kiss at a time, one bite at a time, whatever. Yeah. One nibble, one lick, one taste. Oh my.
One stroke. Okay. And that sets us up for next week's conversation, folks. The gift of self-pleasuring. Yes, and all the conclusions that might be coming up about that and all of the rights and wrongs that you might have been taught about that. What if we could blow those out of the water next week with our conversation about the gift of self-pleasuring, which in the course of this conversation actually does involve your brain to a degree. Some cool stuff there. So we are ready to play with that. So whatever you do this week, don't have any fun exploring sex on the brain.
Stay in your brain. Tell us how it goes. Let us know what showed up. Or you could try something else and let us know how that went.
Yeah. And I just wonder if you might, accidentally stumble upon something really cool about yourself and sex for you, and something that you might like, or something that you might have a capability of doing or creating. And how does it get even better than that? Yeah.
How does it? Yeah. And if you guys get stuck this week, you have trouble, you have difficulty,
Please.
conversationswithkr@gmail.com is our email address. You can find us both on Facebook individually. Like, we're here to assist and support. We don't want you, flapping out in the breeze if you're lost. Like, that's not our intent.
Yeah.
Find us. Let us know what's sticking you or what's working. Like, we would love to hear what celebrations you have as well.
Definitely.
Again, it's always just progress.
How does it get mo better?
Mo better.
Mo better. All right, friends, we're going to dash because we have something else going on. So questions, comments, anything like that, we always love to hear from you. And have a fantastic week. Enjoy some sex for yourself this week. Let go of all of your brain chatter if it, or however much you can this week. And let us know if you want, because we love that feedback. And come back and play with us next week for more unconventional conversations to unfuck your life as we celebrate the sex of everything here on Sexually Speaking with
Grateful for all y'all today. Thank you.
We adore you guys.
See you next week.
Bye.
Right.